This is SoulCharge, the podcast for women leaders to take the highest level of ownership of their power to create results now. I'm your host, Stacy B. Let's dive in. Sales is a transference of power. Period, full stop. And I know you haven't been looking at it that way. Today's episode is all about totally flipping your perspective on sales on its head so that you can start looking at sales as what it really is, which is a complete transference of power. It is a complete transference of conviction to your customer, to your team as the leader. And more than anything, we want to uncover what might be going on within you, that there's a block or something that's not allowing you to fully step in to your power so that it can be transferred. Sales is such an interesting topic, especially for women and women leaders, because as a multi-seven-figure CEO, what you can be experiencing is that sales is a department. But what I want you to do is have a different perspective on sales. Sales from this day forward is all about power. It's all about how much do you believe in the thing that you are selling? How much do you believe in your product, your company, your service, that it is the end all be all in the marketplace for someone to achieve their goals? Because that's what sales is. Sales is transferring certainty. To the extent that you believe in your product and service and yourself many times, because, right, it starts with you and then we need to deploy it to the team and then we have to get their buy-in so that they live and breathe the promise and so that they can transition into the sales force for the company. But what if we peel this onion all the way back? What if we really dive into sales 101 from my perspective, which is all about conviction and certainty. And this is why one of the core values at SoulCharge is certitude. And certitude, I love it so much, this word, because to me, it is an inner state of certainty. It is an inner state of confidence. A lot of times we base our confidence on external things that happen that are positive, right? It's like we do the thing and then we get the confidence and then we build from there. But we always have this choice. We always have the choice to move through the world in certainty. And that is the core of sales in my mind, is how certain are you? And do you embody that? Because if you're moving through the world in an incredible, infectious level of certainty, people are going to buy whatever you're selling. No matter what. Every single time, even if you sold to them yesterday. And I love taking this approach with sales because with sales, it can be perceived in the wrong way, which is I'm trying to get something from you. But that's not what sales is. If we look at sales, it is an art. It is like a beautiful piece of art in the most elegant museum in history. If you look at it from the state, what it really means. There's two things that sales represents. One, how certain are you that the promise that you are stating, the product that you're delivering, is going to transform the problem that your customer or client has? How sure are you? But the other part of that is, how are you teaching your customer and client how to do the same? Because just because your customer or client buys from you, that's actually not the end of the transaction. As leaders, we need to look at this differently. We need to look at, what if instead of looking at the singular transaction, we started looking at sales as, I am literally teaching people how to be certain in their lives, in their business, and how they move through the world. That's what sales is. I'm transferring my ability to stand in my power unapologetically to you. You just so happen to be buying my product, but you're taking that talent with you. And if we start looking at that, there's no concern about being salesy. In fact, that's just a cop-out. Let's call it what it is. Being salesy is just an excuse for not standing in your power and showing other people to do the same. Sales is transferring conviction. It is teaching certitude by leading by example. So let's dive into this today because you all know this is my favorite game, right? My favorite topic. I love sales. Sales has been my entire career. And I love looking at sales different because it isn't talked about enough about what sales really is about. It's not about this one-time transaction or frankly, a repeat client that sends in a ton of referrals. It is about teaching and empowering your clients how to say yes to themselves. It is teaching and empowering our clients about in their journey of saying yes to our product or service, they are empowered to do the same over and over and over again. I don't think you're a good salesperson or you have a good salesperson if you're not able to teach people this tool. Because the fact of the matter is that we're not interested in just a one-time sale. We're interested in changing how people carry themselves. We're interested in teaching people what does it really look like for the external world to taste your power. What does that feel like? What does that look like? It looks like showing up in such bold, unapologetic, convicted energy that it's infectious and they can't help but drink that nectar, just like a beautiful hummingbird would pop by the hummingbird feeder. That's how I want you to think of sales moving forward, is your influence, your potency, your impact is the sale. You don't have to convince anyone. They want to be like that. Whether I was selling real estate, whether I was selling vacuums, yes, that is something I did when I was very young. It was a short jaunt because I won't go into the vacuum story, but no matter what I was selling, it wasn't ever about the vacuum. It wasn't ever about the real estate. It was about they could decide how the transaction was going to go. It was about connecting seller clients in real estate to what was it they actually wanted and seeing that they could call the shots. They were empowered to be convicted versus how many of us feel in a sales transaction, which is, I want to sell this thing. The market is what it is. And I'm a victim to the process. This is your message. You are not a victim to the process. This is about you being convicted and calling the shots of how things go, period. We lead with sales. We talk about sales because that's what you all want more of. You want more of your team hitting their sales metrics. You want more of that conviction when you're trying to land that multi-million-dollar deal for the company. If you're still a CEO that's in business development. But the truth of the matter is looking at sales is the key. Because when you are in this energy, when you are in this energy of being completely convicted, you are actually showing the world what power in motion looks like, and they need it. They need to see this from you, and they need to see what's possible. So I want to give you an example of a way that this shows up. So I recently had a multi-million-dollar CEO client that had a situation where a client had come to her for a proposal, and she still deals with clients over a certain level in the business. And they had come to her for a proposal, and they had asked for a very simple proposal. And she could have gone to that proposal satisfying their requests. But after we talked, I said, you need to show them all of what's possible based on what you do, based on the transformation that you provide your clients. You need to show them the promised land, not the crumbs that they're looking for. They don't know what they don't know. And it's our job as leaders to guide them to the promised land. And so I encouraged her to actually go into that proposal with the Big Daddy, the ultimate sort of package. And how I want to bring this back to this conversation today is that it's her job to show them what's possible. It's her job to transfer the power to convert and achieve what it is that's important to them by way of using her services. If she would have gone in just talking about the breadcrumbs or the small requests that they have, they think that that's what is offered within her organization, where ultimately the risk that could be taken in that example is she provides this proposal with what they're asking for, and they think that's what she provides. Then guess what happens? she puts herself at risk that the client goes and pursues other solutions that she provides because she simply didn't guide them to the promised land that she knew was best. She responded to the request versus being in her conviction. And that's what this whole thing is about, is if we think about how this boils down and relates to sales, is people don't necessarily know the promised land. I'm saying the promised land, which is like your ultimate solution, your unique solution that you provide. People don't know that that's available. They just know that they have this 2-inch problem when you can deliver the whole foot of solutions and solve not just that thing, but actually the root of what's going on. And so looking at this from this sales perspective and this new perspective of, oh, sales is just the external representation of my power in motion, then what I need to do is to make sure they know the extent of what I provide. Because if I show them that, they're clients for life. I'm not only solving what this today thing is, but I'm able to work with them long term. And so sales today is no longer about, again, that initial thing or a client request, but actually showing them what is possible. And to be honest, that's why I've always been so good at sales, is because my passion in life is showing people what is possible with no limits. And so if you bring that back to sales and you bring this back to yourself and you think this is about showing people what's possible, never could be salesy. In fact, it would be selfish if you didn't show them what's possible. Like, how rude that you're not going to tell someone about a solution you have. That is insane. It is insane to me that you wouldn't boldly ask for the close if you knew that showed them what was possible. That just makes no sense. And that is why I'm so passionate about flipping this script around sales, because sales is every day of our lives. We're literally selling our spouses on why we should run the schedule the way we want to within our families. We're literally selling our teams and employees on why they should care about our vision and work and dedicate their lives to our vision. We are selling ourselves on why we should go to this restaurant or that restaurant. It's constant. It is not just a conversation of how do we move our businesses forward. And I think if we stop thinking about it as the singular thing, we can remove all of the stories and all of the misconceptions around a topic that is actually brilliant if you think about it. It is the coolest topic to think that we have the opportunity in this lifetime to help people see what is possible. That is so cool. That we have the opportunity to show people what's possible. That is what sales is. Let's talk about these different areas of sales, especially in the business, because it's very clear that sales is a part of the business, right? And that you are the salesperson sometimes long after you build out the team. But there's also, so there's the sales part of your business, right? And there's the sales piece of the salespeople in your organization and their responsibility. So I want to talk about that. But I also want to talk about sales as it relates to culture, as it relates to team. And then I also want to talk about sales as it relates to you and your true power in what's next and what might be going on if you're experiencing just a time period where, sometimes as we go throughout our seasons of business, it's like, our product or service is doing really well. It makes sense. It's clicking. And then we have a personal revelation or transformation and things just don't feel or jive the way that they once did. So I want to talk about those things. So let's talk about sales first as it relates to the organization, as it relates to making sales in the company. And you all love hearing me talk about sales, so I'm likely going to do a series on this to really focus deeper on each of these topics. But first, let's talk about sales in the company and your sales team. Even if you are a leader that are still in the sales role, even a little bit. I mean, I think we always are, right? We're the brand, the face, and the experience of the company. And so this will apply to whatever stage of business you're in from a team perspective. But if we take sales and we think of sales as this transfer of power, what we need to make sure of is that we are standing in our power as the leader, first and foremost, and fully aligned with the products and pricing. And so the first question that I like to ask clients, and I'll offer this to you on the pod today, is there anything about the products and pricing that you've created that was coming from a compromised place for you? Whether it was to make a deal, offer a discount so you get people in the door, whatever was driving maybe the original creation of your products and services, do an audit. Just do a gut check. Like, you'll know right away as I'm asking you this question, is it really something that's aligned? Because the fact of the matter is that if you are not behind what you're selling and offering the world, it's never going to transfer to the team, and it's just going to be clunky in that. Now, here's the caveat. Even if you had created a model that doesn't necessarily align with where you're at now, where the company's at, or where you want to go, obviously, like, refreshing that is always an option, but also looking at it from the standpoint of, does it still add value to the client journey, to the client experience? And are you looking at it from the lens of you delivering it or someone else? And I'll just give you an example of what I mean. But I was talking to a client about this last week, and she has an element of her program that feels expired to her, like she just doesn't want to do it anymore. And instead of looking at it like, well, who could do this for me? Who could I hire for this opportunity? She was not growing the program because she didn't want to do an aspect of it. And so that's a question I would ask you as well is there an aspect of the programs and pricing that is out of alignment? If so, is it just a simple, who can I hire question? And that may fix it. So then you're excited to deliver it, or sell it. But it's so interesting, especially as women, the things that get us caught up in the way that we're selling and growing the business. So many times we do not grow the business or do certain things to grow the business because we don't want to do an aspect of it. And instead of asking a simple question of, okay, who could deliver this and how can I train them up? I'm totally guilty of this too in my journey. Is what we do is we just stall and we don't even realize we're doing it. And then it turns into this loop and this cycle of like just feeling a bit disconnected from like the why and the process of the sale and just all of that. Because the truth of the matter is like you don't want to deliver on it. So assess that and know that the book plug for Who Not How is a great resource, but asking that who question is so powerful to just get you out of your head and look at it more like, what does this program need to be successful so that I would be excited to sell it? So again, coming back to sales being your power transferred, you have to be aligned with that. And then when you are transferring this over to the team so that they can move through the world in that conviction, it's so important to audit beliefs and internal state. And this is something we do with our CEO clients and their teams, but actually audit the internal state and belief system of the team members that are heading up the program and service. Because if you're transferring your power and you're like, this is aligned, I'm empowered and I'm in my certainty, and you're transferring, the initiative for them to take this forward, but then they're in their yayas, as I like to say, it's not a clean transfer of power. A friend of mine had brought up a quote yesterday, which I feel like it totally aligns here. And it says, a clean engine delivers power. And it's from way back in like Henry Ford days. But the point is that our ability to be clean and clear in our intent, our beliefs, and where we're coming from allows that result to land and land quickly and be successful, right? And so if we think of this almost like as an assembly line, it's not just about you transferring your power to the client in how they get the result and the solution, but do an audit with your team. Make sure that everyone is pacing and is aligned with that. Now, it's a very, interesting perspective to go like, God, Stacy, that seems like a lot of work, right? It's like, I got to get my team aligned. I got to do this, that, and the other just for like the sale to land. Why can't salespeople just sell? And I want to speak to that for a second. salespeople absolutely can sell. Absolutely, there are salespeople out there that are going to meet quotas, and they're working in companies that they have the metric, they need to deliver on it, and they need to deliver on it today. And what we're talking about is conscious sales. What we are talking about is the new paradigm of your operating system for you as the leader and your team. And with that new operating system comes a level of duty and responsibility and ownership of the energy that you're bringing to the table during the sales process. If I just want a transactional sale with you, I don't need to investigate my inner state, but that's not what you want. Otherwise you wouldn't be listening to this podcast. And that's definitely not what we're about, right? It's like, I want my sales not to just be someone buying from me, but actually that they are transformed because they were here. What's the point if they're not? And so it's a higher level. It is a more precise approach to sales. And because it is precise, it's a higher conversion rate every time, because you're not carrying baggage. You're not carrying the bullshit. You are literally meeting the client with a pristine sales experience externally and also experience internally of who you be and your embodiment. So those are a couple of tips for sales and the business. Now let's talk about culture and team. So when we are trying to rally the troops, right, and we have a team that's working tirelessly to fulfill the vision, one of the things that can happen a lot is this feeling like you need to rally the team. You need to, sell them on the vision. You need to get their buy-in. That's very common, right? I got to get their buy-in. I got to present this slide deck in a way like it's their buy-in. And in the approach, when you are working to get your culture amplified, when you're working to elevate your culture, when you're even working to set the culture, if I am trying to convince my team, I am coming from the wrong place. If I'm trying to convince you something, I'm not in my power. And if sales is indeed, which it is, a transference of power externally, if I am trying to convince my team to buy into something, what I am saying is I have to go and do something to get you to convince. I have to do something to convince you, versus if I am truly in my conviction, that is enough. If I speak words that are in conviction and I convey to you the purpose, the mission, the values, what we stand for, and I am living that as a leader. And that's where I want to just put a plug. Are you living that as a leader? Because that's the dissonance. That is the disconnect. You don't have to get buy-in if you are being it. You do not need buy-in as a leader if you are bought in. And that's the gap that happens. If you are experiencing a culture gap, if you're experiencing a space where you're wanting to change culture, ask yourself if you are leading in being bought in. And if you are not, it's about bringing it back to you first before addressing the team. It's crazy to me. It is insane how many of our leaders bring it back to themselves, set right what's going on with them, elevate their thinking, their beliefs, whatever is going on for them, change that, and how they sometimes don't even have to have a conversation with their team, because all that was missing was how they were showing up. And of course, it always starts with us. And so I want to bring that back. But from a culture perspective, if you are in your power, checkbox, right? You can deploy the values, the mission, the vision very clearly. Now, taking it to your managers, your leadership team, and beyond into the culture, what happens is we have to do the same thing that I described a few moments ago about your salespeople. Are your managers and leaders aligned in what you're bought into? Or are they trying to get their sales team to perform and complaining about stuff themselves? Are they out of alignment with something? Are they showing up one way, but then behind closed doors or in a small group conversation, they're out of alignment? The fastest way to up-level culture is align. And they are simple things of who you be inside is aligned outside. And it's very, very quick that we can, help get that alignment. So that is culture and team. And so I'm going to go deeper on these, I think, in future episodes. Of course, comments, feedback, let me know if there's like a piece of this that you've enjoyed more so, because we can go deeper on that in future episodes. But the biggest thing is that sales is not transactional, because you're not transactional, and sales is an extension of you. You are not meant to, behind closed doors, be a certain way, and then outside change to get the sale, right? It's like, what we want is for you to internally feel a level of certitude and conviction that when you go out into the world, people want to know what you're doing because they can feel it. And then you can share, and then you can tell them about the solutions that you provide. But we've put so much pressure on sales and the sales scripts and the sales process and sales objections. And those are all really nice tools to have in your tool belt. But a lot of times it takes away from your essence. And that's what I want to activate in you, is your sales essence is an entire book of hundreds of scripts. Because the truth of the matter is that if you're in your essence and you are looking at sales as, this is actually the way I get to show people how to say yes to themselves. I get to show people what is possible by me being in that external representation of power. What happens is the conversations around sales are very natural. And as I have really dialed this in myself, I have noticed that and even in my early days of real estate and sales, I used scripts, maybe like one of every 30 appointments. I mean, I don't even think that much. Why was that? Because I was direct, I was convicted, and I was so sure that no one was going to get you the results. I was going to get you faster, better, stronger, because I know what you need. I hear you, I see you, and I am going to deliver. And if something happens, right, because sometimes a house doesn't sell if we use real estate, because I know you all can relate to a house and it not selling. The relationship was so strong because I was going to deliver for them. Beyond market conditions, beyond all of it, they were safe with me. And that's the biggest thing, right? Why do people want to be in conviction? They want to be safe. Sales is about showing people the promised land to safety. Why do they want to work with you for their products and services, for your products and services? Because your solution solves a problem where they no longer are uncertain, where they have safety and know what to expect. I love this episode so much, and I can't wait for you to take this all in, and we will dive in more specifically, more deeply on sales in future episodes. Are you loving SoulCharge? If so, hit the subscribe button, leave a review, and share an episode. We want to bring powerful content to women leaders each week so that women can be unleashed to create the results that they want now. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.